Welcome everyone to the CDOs magazine series of one-on-one interviews with CDOs, data leaders, and key influencers. I'm your host, Robert Lutton, Vice President of Sandhill Consultants, and I'm coming to you today from Toronto, Canada, working with the CDO magazine, MIT CDO IQ Information Quality Symposium, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers. Today, I'd like to introduce Saleem Khan, who's the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Discovery Data. Welcome, Saleem.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks for having me.
It is our pleasure. One of the things we normally do is just a little background question to get our audience a little bit familiar with you. Now, I noted when starting off, you started out as a software engineer, a bit of a technical background, implementing IT solutions for financial services. And then you moved into Standard & Poor's, and that's where you started to hone your craft into data and analytics. From there, I could see you moved into a global leadership position at Dun & Bradstreet. And there you moved on to be founder and CEO of, I think, Hyperplan, if I pronounce it right. And now you're the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Discovery Data. So my first question for you is, what led you into the path of data and analytics?
Yeah, so it's an interesting journey. So I started my journey as a programmer early on in my career, working for a startup. I was employee number 4 at this particular startup. And the startup I was working for, I did everything from taking sales calls through to actually programming the core product for the company, as well as collecting a lot of the data and statistics that we were collecting at the time. Fast forward, I joined IBM as a result of an acquisition of that startup. And then my first foray into data and analytics and data science came when I went to Wall Street. I went to work for Standard & Poor's. And this is back in 2011 timeframe, 2012 was the first time we started seeing larger amounts of data and the need from some of our sales and marketing teams to make predictions about who might issue a new bond, which is one of the core things that S&P gets paid for is for bond ratings. And so being able to predict who might issue a bond next becomes very important, right? And so that was my first foray into data and analytics. And so since then, since the 2012 timeframe, I've been doing nothing but data and analytics. So I've kind of transitioned from being a programmer earlier on in my career and being much more hands-on to now running data teams and analytics teams. So that's kind of how my kind of origin story has come about.
It's interesting, as we do some interviews, we see a mix of people coming in from both a technical background such as yours, and then obviously a business background. No right or wrong way, it's just an interesting way on how one gets here. For the majority of the interview, what we'd like to do is we'd like to focus on how Discovery Data enables your clients to create actionable intelligence and insight from your data and analytics platform. If I can ask, what makes Discovery Data unique?
So Discovery Data is the largest provider of data on registered investment advisors, broker-dealers, and insurance agents in the United States and North America, Canada included. What makes us unique is not just our database, but the fact that we service some of the largest asset managers, recruiters at financial services firms, technology service providers, and another number of other providers as well. Our data set is pretty broad. We have over 3,000 plus different attributes that we have on each individual broker-dealer, advisor, or insurance agent. So we do have a lot of breadth in addition to the depth of the data. So I think what makes us unique is we are clearly the leader in this space. Many of our asset management firms do tell us time and time again that we probably have the most succinct data when it comes to the buy side within financial services. So I think that's what makes us unique is the fact that we're able to bring in such a large amount of information. We have over 750,000 licensed reps in the US and Canada, as well as 2.1 million insurance agents in our database, and very detailed information about their assets under management, through to derived analytics like our growth factors and information like that.
So I can see how that would help a chief data and analytics officer. So moving on from with that background, for an organization to be successful and to become more data-driven, it has to have visionary leadership in the data and analytics space. In your opinion, what have you seen, or what do you think these data leaders need for success in that position?
Yeah, I think being in a data company as a chief data and analytics officer, I think one of the biggest things a CDAO needs is demonstrable, success in the past that shows that you can link the collection of a data asset to tangible revenue. Meaning, we're, as a data company, we're in the business of selling data, and our product is data. And so I think any CDAO joining any company has to have demonstrable proof that they've been able to build a data product from scratch, have been able to gone through all the machinations that it takes to scrub the data, enrich the data, get the data vendable, and then also derive some level of analytics that differentiates your data so that it is something that is valuable for an end customer. I think those are the key things, just making sure that a CDO is not just someone who's going to come in with not necessarily, and not to denigrate this, but not necessarily just an academic background in statistics and probability and machine learning, but also that business acumen, that ability to say that, for instance, in our industry right now, diversity and inclusion is pretty hot. It's a very, very big topic in financial services, and being able to find diverse candidates is a big thing. And so I think part of a CDO's job is to say, all right, I work at the intersection of my customers' needs and my ability as a CDO to source data, meeting in the middle there and doing all the machinations to get that data right, get it correct, and get it in the hands of customers. I think that's what it takes to be successful as a CDAO.
Very, very important points. And I love the way you talk about that. The CDAO is that intersection and driving value. Perhaps we can come back to a point about how discovery data can provide a value. So in some of the organizations that we see out there, they're ahead of the game. Some of them, however, have got a mountain of challenges and they're playing catch up during this period of transition. Could you outline some of the benefits that discovery data could provide to such chief data and analytic officers?
Right. So typically we sell to a chief marketing or a chief revenue officer at an organization, but we do find more and more we are selling to chief data officers and chief data scientists. One of the basic things that we provide is basic contact information. So our database is very rich in all the email addresses for these advisors, phone numbers, the physical snail mail addresses, as well as information about how these advisors have grown over the past 10 years, for instance, how their AUM has grown, whether this is an advisor that an asset manager wants to reach out to or not. And so I think, one of the key benefits that we provide to CDOs is that ability to have that master data, that master contact data that you can bring in-house. Then on top of that, I think about this as kind of like layers and kind of layers of maturity. At the bottom, the bedrock is just having good quality contact information. That's your bedrock. And then the second layer above that is, okay, now that you have good contact information, your CMO and your CRO and their teams are going to need personalized information. So information about, for instance, if you're trying to recruit someone, it would be good to know what school they went to, if they play golf, what are their interests and hobbies, right? And that's where you go beyond just the basic contact information and get personalized information. And then the last layer I think about is really intent data, which is in the sales and marketing world becoming more and more the holy grail. And intent data really helps CDOs and CMOs by understanding what a customer might do in the near future. So for instance, if a customer was browsing about municipal bonds or browsing about ESG related assets or ETFs, there is a high likelihood that that person might be willing to buy these sorts of assets in the near future. And so, when I think about value for a CDO, it's really those three layers. It's the bedrock of having correct and accurate data for contact information. Then it's about personalization, and then having this intent data to kind of drive more real-time discussions at times when it's most relevant to engage someone.
Anytime you can create a better relationship with a prospective buyer who, what is the old story? People buy from people they like. And it seems that having those foundational information, the personalization and intent will help you get closer to your end destination. As I was on your website, I was looking around. I think that, Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you've actually got a unique framework that can help executives understand a little bit more about how discovery data can deliver this. Would you be able to expand a little bit more on this framework?
Yeah, sure. So one of our core bits of intellectual property here at Discovery Data is our data frame process, as we call it. So FRAME is an acronym. It stands for fuel, refine, magnify, analyze, and execute. And what it is essentially, the fuel is the core data that we source. So for instance, we source everything from, the SEC through to FINRA. We've got sources down at the state level where we have relationships with each individual state in the U.S. We have relationships with some of the territories within Canada as well to collect information as well from Canada. So, the fuel is really the first part of our data framework. Then it comes to refining that fuel, the R in FRAME, if you will, which is where, we start scrubbing the data. We start looking for any sort of mistakes or misspellings or any of those sort of validation issues. And then, we try to magnify the data, meaning, we try to take a closer look at the data and get a sense of, do the numbers look right? The AUM as self-reported, for instance, does that look accurate? Should we be reporting this or not? So we kind of magnify some of those things. Then there's an analysis portion where we actually create something called our growth factors and our advisor success levels. These are derived metrics where for each individual broker-dealer and registered investment advisor, we get a sense of how successful we think this individual could be in the near future. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the highest, 5 being the lowest, is this person going to be an amazing advisor if they were to join your firm, or are they going to be on the lower end, right? So we do that sort of thing. And then finally, on the execution part of it, the E in FRAME, that's really about distribution. So we're able to distribute our data in a couple different ways. We do basic data feeds. We have some level of APIs. We also have our portal product. And we also have business intelligence tools that allow our customers to kind of slice and dice the data however they see fit. So we have a pretty robust process, as you can tell, this data frame process that we have. So it is one of our key differentiators, I feel, as a company.
I think a lot of organizations do get the benefit from actually being able to actualize their methodology in such a framework that you've done. So congratulations on that. I'm going to come back to maybe a little bit more about you and your role within Discovery Data. I noted that as their internal CDO, that you're responsible for the data management and analytics strategy. So if I can ask, how do you kind of marry up or match up your internal need for the data management and analytics strategy with the overall Discovery Data roadmap? How do you manage the both, the intersection of both?
Yeah, right. So, I mean, we do have an overarching roadmap at Discovery Data from a product standpoint. The data strategy, the data and analytics strategy is really driven by our customers, first and foremost. So I am on at least half a dozen sales calls a week. Right. I meet with very many of our customers. Oftentimes I'll lead the discussion with our customers, with some of our largest customers. We're fortunate to have over 1,100 plus customers in the financial services space. And so I will often join customer calls and actively lead the discussion about, what's working, what isn't working, and what would you like to see out of the data, right? I think that drives a lot of the conversation. That's one way of looking at the data and analytics roadmap and kind of growing it. The other part is to kind of really look at where the proverbial puck is headed, to use a hockey analogy.
Yes, I love that. Yes, Wayne Gretzky, skate to where the hockey's going to be, right? Or where the puck's going to be. I love that.
That's right. And you being from Toronto, I'm sure you would appreciate that. So
I do.
Proverbially speaking, we try to skate to where the puck is headed. And what I mean by that is, I always keep my eyes peeled and open about what are industry publications talking about. And right now, for instance, I'll give one example. In our industry, like I said, diversity and inclusion is hot, and it has been for this entire year, ever since the events that occurred last summer here in the U.S. And so I think financial services in general is waking up and saying, we need people with more diverse backgrounds coming in to advisor roles and coming into senior management roles. And so that drives a lot of my thinking as well as chief data and analytics officer, is that, there's a component of looking at what it is your customers want. But the other part of it is also, sometimes customers don't necessarily know what they want. And so you've got to understand yourself what the market dynamics are, and what customers will be asking for in the next 4 or 5 months. And so I feel part of my job is to kind of read the tea leaves and take some educated guesses about where product might be headed. And the other is to truly listen to our customers.
I was just going to say that obviously with the client requirements, the future industry requirements today and in the future, that you do need to have a little bit of the clairvoyancy into reading the tea leaves. But congratulations, you seem to be carried off very well. So as you bundle as discovery data, I was going to say diversity data, but as discovery data pulls us all together, right? One of the things that we'll be most interested in hearing from you is how you see companies can drive revenue and profitability growth, and how you are seeing key business value outcomes being driven from these requirements. So could you maybe expand upon, from your experience, what do you see as companies that are successfully driving revenue and profitability, and what are those key business value outcomes that they're driving them forward with?
Right. So I'll answer this from the perspective of our customers. So for instance, one example I'll give is the intent data. So we do have this intent data product where we've partnered with a company called Advisor Target to source some of this information. We found some of our customers reaping something like a 30x return on their initial investment on the data. Wow. So for instance, if you spent $1 on our data, you're making $30 for every dollar that you spent on our data. And so what we're finding is that the intent data is a huge value driver for many of our customers, especially if you're a large asset manager and you're looking to distribute product to broker dealers and RIAs. Knowing the intentions of an advisor or a broker dealer, that they might be interested in an energy ETF or an ESG related ETF, and being able to target them before your competition can target them. Right. That is a key value driver. The other big value driver, I would say, is just, in the diversity space, for instance, I have an anecdote there where, we had a customer that was looking for people that were of Korean descent, that spoke Korean in the Los Angeles area, because they were looking to kind of engage more with that community, because that community as a whole is growing in affluence in that particular region. They were going to run a print ad originally. So imagine like running a newspaper ad to find Korean advisors, right? Broker dealers. They were going to do that originally. They instead use our data to run that particular advertising campaign. It was more of an email campaign. And they found their conversion rates were so much higher using email, right? Because who reads the newspaper nowadays, right?
Yes, exactly. Right. Exactly.
And so, those are some examples, some anecdotal examples of some value that we've added for customers. But, the list goes on and on. I mean, our data can be used from a sales and marketing standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint. So there are some very large areas where we can add value for our customers.
And I'm sure that you have a lot of those use cases listed on the website. Saleem, we've talked about, strategies and roadmap and value delivery. In the remaining couple of minutes, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask for your input on where you believe organizations that you deal with may run into challenges So would you be able to share some of your thoughts on some of the challenges and maybe how best to avoid them?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges customers might face are definitely one in the accuracy and completeness of the data. Now, Discovery Data is not the only company that provides this sort of information. We do have competitors, but we focus quite a bit on the quality, the veracity of our data, and so I think that's one of the key areas where customers kind of look to us for kind of being the bellwether and kind of guiding them through the collection of accurate contact information in this space.
So wonderful insights, wonderful insights. If I could ask, if you got any parting comments that you believe would be insightful for data leaders to unlock the hidden value and be able to produce more insights for their business, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think, look, the Chief Data and Analytics Officer role is a fairly new role within most organizations. I think in order to be successful in the role, you really need to partner with your internal Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Product Officer, and CEO, right? I think I kind of joke that half my job is data. The other half is marketing the data, right? Right. You really need to understand who the audience is that's willing to buy this information, what are their needs, and make sure that the data is meeting the customer and not the other way around, right? And so I think that's one of the key things here to be successful in this newer role is being able to partner well with your Chief Marketing Officer, your Chief Revenue Officer, the CEO. Luckily, we have a great CEO in Bob Skay, who is a very innovative CEO in his own right and has kind of the data chops and understands the data really well. And so being able to work in a team like that, where I feel we're cross-functional here at Discovery Data, where, I think, Bob can probably wear the hat of a CDO, and then our CMO could probably wear the hat of the CDO as well. Having those sorts of cross-functional capabilities are key in being successful in this role.
I think one of the key things you talk about there is partnering and how to communicate and partner with those fellow execs is definitely right up the top of the list there. Well, Saleem, 25 minutes goes by really fast. And I'd like to thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it. And we hope that we'll get the chance to come back and do this again.
Great. Thank you very much, Robert. Thanks for the time.
You're welcome. And for our listeners, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. Thank you.